May I come in, sir?
Yes, please do.
Morning, sir. Morning, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Please sit down.
Thank you, sir.
You're Miss Medha Anand.
Yes, sir.
Medha, you're comfortable?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And English is going to be your preferred medium.
Yes, sir.
Fine, Medha. To begin with, I want you to introduce yourself to the board in terms of your background,
Yes.
your education and hobbies, and also your work experience, if any.
Sir, I'm Medha Anand. I was born in Bareilly. Thereafter, I did my 11th and 12th from Saharanpur. Post that, I moved to Kanpur to do my civil engineering from HBTI Kanpur. After that, I started preparing for civil services. And in 2019, I got into Indian Railway Traffic Service. Presently, I'm working as ATM planning in Prayagraj, sir.
So you are currently IAS officer. You're the last batch of IAS?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how is the Josh, as it's called in the service, not realizing that you are disappearing as a service?
Sir, not disappearing, it's just reappearing in a new form, if I may say so. So we'll be called IRMS, the level 16 and 17, that is the topmost officers have already been shifted to IRMS. We have started from level 10, so gradually all the officers will be shifted to IRMS, sir.
That's true, but railwaymen, railway officers in this country have their own kind of a ecosystem, right? They have their own culture, like the army officers. That is the only other service I can think of. So in that way, disappearing of a service or renaming the service, whatever you want to call it, how will it affect the culture? Or how do you see it is affecting the culture within organization?
So my understanding is that with time, when this will become one cadre service, we'll be able to collaborate better, we'll be able to cooperate better, because right now, as I can see, we have many different departments, be it the engineering department, the accounts department, personnel department. But sir, as was also done during the regime of Lalu Prasad Yadav, when we got a surplus of around 25,000 crore, one thing which was done in the systemic efforts was that we reduced the departmentalism aspect. So I'm hoping that this way we'll be able to perform better.
But the basic questions remain. When this Air India was a state carrier, there was like that, what will happen if there is no state carrier? Not that there is no state carrier and still country is running fine. Why do we need to have a state department as railways? Railways is a public service. It should be left to the public sector. At best, you can have railway tracks. But why should you be running railways?
So my understanding is there are some routes which are not remunerative, and the private parties would never run on such routes.
They can be subsidized, simply.
So,
Well, what's wrong with that? In Delhi,
yes,
we let women travel for 0 rupees in buses. No heavens fell.
So then the fares also will have to be regulated that ways. And sir, even in United Kingdoms, there was this experiment done where railways was kind of privatized, but that experiment didn't do much good there. And at the end, they had to take it back because railways...
Okay, but then why department of the government? It can be a PSU. Ordnance factories are now corporatized. Why not railways can be corporatized?
So I think there is an emotional value attached to railways for a very long time. Along with that, sir, the safety aspect requires that it remains a government department. Also, sir, there are many ways in which railways is giving pro bono services. For example, sir, we have cancer trains where the cancer patients are given tickets, they're definite confirmed tickets. Apart from that, sir, we had senior citizen concession, which was earlier there. Even now, we give concessions to the PWDs, persons with disabilities. So these are some of the ways, sir, where there is a requirement to have a public sector department for Indian Railways, sir.
Anyways, thank you.
Medha, it seems that you do not like the idea of privatization of railways. What would be your opinion on privatization of education? Will that be a welcome idea?
Ma'am, I think at this developmental stage of our nation, if we are privatizing education, that will become a monopoly of a few. So to ensure that the social aspect of it is also covered, we need to have education given to one and all. Because the initial footstep on which the child has to put his or her foot has to be on an equal footing. The rich, the wealthy, the upper classes can always get an opportunity to get educated well, even if not in India, maybe in foreign countries. But for the ones who are not that well off, I think there is a need to have.
Good, wonderfully said. Give me your opinion on the social sector budget cut in context.
Ma'am,
The budget has been cut down for the social sector spending.
yes, ma'am.
I want your opinion on that.
Ma'am, I think since the base has already been laid, so when in the beginning we had to lay down the infrastructure, we had to lay down all the facilities. That time we needed to have a larger amount of budget for the social sector. Having said that, we could definitely enhance the social sector budget, but the government would have thought something. It would have some solid reasons to do the same, ma'am.
You give me your opinion. What is the minimum required percentage of budget that should be spent on education for a country like India?
Ma'am, I think it should be somewhere around 4 to 5% of the GDP.
How much are we doing right now?
Ma'am, I'll take a guess. I think it's 2 to 3%.
It's 2.5.
Yes, ma'am.
So is it fair?
Ma'am, I think since we have more developmental agendas also to cater to, maybe the government is doing its best to allocate as much as is possible. But because of the small kitty, the small size of the pie that we have to fix our priorities. When we allot something to the capital expenditure, we are actually taking away the budget that we could have given maybe to the social sectors. So there'll always be this trade-off where we have to spend that small kitty on all the sectors and ensure that bare minimum development occurs across sectors, ma'am.
All right. Have you heard of the delimitation debate?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me, what is delimitation?
Ma'am, delimitation commission is set up so that there is a proper count of the population, and after that seats are allotted so that there is fair distribution of seats.
And what is the
population.
debate on this?
Ma'am, one debate is that it will happen after 2026. Ma'am, I can recall two debates. Ma'am, one is the women reservation that will be given. That will happen only after delimitation is done. Ma'am, second is the north and south divide of the states. Since southern states have done well on the demographic front, there are allegations that they might have lesser seats allocated
True.
to them.
So do you think delimitation would be unfair for the southern states?
Ma'am, I think the government would come up with a formula, as we came up in the Finance Commission, where demographic effort was rewarded and 10% was given to the states that did well in that sector. Something of that sort can be done in this aspect also, to ensure that there is cooperative and competitive federalism and the states do not lose their trust onto the center. So, ma'am, something of that sort will definitely be sought forward, I think, in future, wherein the southern states which have done well on their demography would be not penalized per se.
Right, Medha. Medha, if I give you a situation, I hope you know what poverty line is.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if we say that the poverty line is set at 100 rupees per person per day.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then there are 3 income groups below the poverty line. So not concerned about the people who are above it. 3 income groups below poverty line. 10 people earning 90 rupees. Another 10, 50, and the lowest 10 earning 20. You have 1,000 rupees as budget to allocate, which is not sufficient to bring everybody up to the poverty line. Tell me, which group would you want to help first and why?
Ma'am, the lowermost would require my assistance first, because I think they'll be having issues even with their nutrition and food aspect of life. Nobody should, right now at this developmental stage, I don't think anybody should suffer from lack of food. Hunger should be the last thing that happens to our citizenry. So, ma'am, I would like to first spend it on the last. Along with that, I'll try to ensure that if the middle one also has the basic minimum facilities of nutrition and food and healthcare. Health and education I can give to all of them, because that will be like of a secondary thing after food. So, some sort of an arrangement I'll try to make where for the upper two I'm able to give secondary services, but the last one I'm at least able to give them the food requirements.
Okay, and would your answer change if you are specifically asked to reduce the number of people below poverty line, if that is the goal?
Ma'am, if I'm able to employ the topmost section into jobs which they can do better, maybe through vocational skills or just by the sheer amount of providing them the opportunities, I might as well shift them to above poverty line, and then I can focus on the rest of them more targeted way, ma'am.
Okay, my last question to you. If we propose a blanket 50% reservation for women across board, would you agree?
Ma'am, that would go against the concept of equality. Already, we have a lot of percentage of reservation. Like we are crossing 50% mark, as was given by the Supreme Court judgment in Indira Sahani case. Ma'am, I think a blanket 50% would be too much for women. And even if 33% is given, I think there should be some economic ceiling. Because a woman coming from an urban setting, getting all the benefits of good education, good schooling, should not be given reservation at any levels, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Medha.
Okay, Medha, you are IRTS 2019 exam,
Yes, sir.
2021 batch.
So 2019 batch. So railway same exam.
Okay,
as in
same.
March.
Okay,
Yes,
all
sir.
right. And that was your only interview, or after that this one, second interview, or is it a third?
So third.
Which was the second one?
Sir, in 2020.
Okay, how much did you get the marks in earlier two?
Sir, in 2020, I got 180.
Okay. And the one before, in which you got selected?
So 193.
Okay, that's a clincher, looks like. Very well done. Have you come across in your 3 to 4 years of service, 3 years perhaps now, of Jamalpur Gymkhana engineers? Have you heard of them? IRSME?
Yes, sir.
You haven't met them any?
So not met them, but we had a training program there for a week.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Where? In Jamalpur Gymkhana?
Yes.
Okay, then
Yes.
you are familiar with that.
Yes, sir.
They will also be absorbed in IRMS or no? That cadre will remain separate? Mechanical engineer, civil engineer, you know that they have separate cadres.
Yes, sir.
IRTS comes from the allied services, so
Yes, sir.
operations are mostly looked after. So IRMS is mostly operations or also other railway cadres?
So they'll include all. So
All?
Yes, sir.
IRSE, IRSME?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, very good. Are you familiar with since you have given a choice, I'll ask some questions from the international relations. 8 Navy personnel were, kind of imprisoned in Qatar and then brought back. They did something which was completely outside their line of duty for which they had gone there, which was patently mistake or a blunder or even illegal for which they were put into it. My question is, where should Indian government draw a line when Indian nationals, when they do something wrong of their own volition, not under any compulsion? Should Indian government always come to rescue them?
So my take is that government is the first responder in such cases, and
Yes.
it should definitely try to bring the citizens back. We can have trials for them, but within the domestic territory, because then we can ensure that at least they're safe and sound. If we leave them to the whims and fancies of the international order, they might face a lot of extortion and physical and mental abuse, so to say, sir.
In this case, consular help by the Indian embassy was given.
Yes.
All that was done. But the Indian government went beyond that, spending its valuable diplomatic and political goodwill. When nothing comes free, government of Qatar will come later at some stage
Yes.
when it suits them to ask for the reciprocal gesture. So my question is there a line to be drawn, or in all cases, Indian government is the last recourse? You do whatever you want abroad, you get caught and get stuck.
Sir, unless there is a human right violation, for example, if there is a crime committed against the humanity as a whole, and it is proven beyond doubt that something of that sort has been done by an Indian national, then maybe we might leave that person to the wills of the international community. But even in that case, I think the government needs to put its back behind the person, because the person is of Indian origin, and we need to ensure that they have a safer transit back to our country, and we are able to hold our case again for them. So this is because if we set a precedent that Indian government won't come to your rescue, people will lose their trust in the government, which I would not want, sir. So
Okay, all right. Moving on. What is the difference in globalization and deglobalization?
So in globalization, the world is becoming more interconnected as well as dependent. The supply chains involve almost all the nations.
Yeah.
So in deglobalization, we are trying to focus on something like an India first or an America first kind of a thing, where we are first of all thinking about our own nation, about our own interests, and then looking forward about the strategic advantages that the other country might
Okay,
have.
good. So, globalization started more or less in more intensive way with the end of Cold War, beginning of 90s. One country in Asia Pacific seems to have been the largest beneficiary. Can you name that country?
So, India, sir?
Well, India is also there, but more
China.
than China.
China,
India, more
yes.
than India is China.
Yes, sir.
And do you know as why they are said to have been the largest beneficiary?
So one reason I can think of is that they have been able to integrate themselves in almost all supply chains. So another is since they had raw materials like the rare minerals, like the semiconductor industry with Taiwan, they already had an upper hand, which they utilized it really well. So third would be because of the political situations there. It was easier for them to implement rules which were against the rule-based global order, wherein the labor situation was almost, I can say, dehumanized to ensure that the labor prices remains low, which cannot happen in a country which is democratic and runs on rules. So I think they utilized all these things really well, and along with that their philosophical thought was very strong about how they need to strengthen themselves first. So they utilized all of them combined and were able to
Okay, good.
do well.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, hello, Medha.
So,
You are already in service, so that should give you a lot of confidence to. So, I just wanted to know what are the provisions made by statutory provisions made by government for the welfare of women from 1950 to 2000. I am not saying that recent ones. You either chronological or whichever way you remember. There are about 5, 6.
so one would be the Age of Consent Act, which would give 21 years age for men and 18 for women. So another would be the Dowry Prevention Act. So another I can recall is Domestic Violence Prevention Act. So then I'm not sure if POXO was, I think it was in 2013, but POXO is another one. And so the latest I can recall is Prevention of Sexual Harassment at Workplace.
You are not saying anything about this Sex Determination Act?
Yes, sir, PCP and DT Act, Prevention of Preconceivement.
So when was
neonatal.
it came into being? Any idea?
So I'm not able to recall, sir.
And what is there in that act?
So it bans sex determination before the child is born because we lived in a patriarchal society. So often there was feticide.
Okay, let us come to some other subject. Let us assume India, where we say that we abolish all subsidies and have only one sort of cash payment to people below poverty line or something, whichever. So what would be your take on this subject of removing the subsidies and giving only one type of subsidy?
So I think different sections of our economy have different kinds of need. So either if we are able to quantify those needs, for example, for a farmer, he or she would have to have something of a fertilizer subsidy, along with that food subsidy, along with that basic means to at least survive.
No, I would say when you do that, what happens that farmer, the subsidy on the fertilizer is taken by big farmers.
Yes.
Smaller farmers or the marginal farmers get very little percentage of that. So whether the government should think on those lines that the subsidy is getting only to the section which really needs that, instead of otherwise 90% of the subsidy is taken by those who really don't deserve it. You don't think about that way. What is your thinking?
So it can be done, but then that will have to be a very meticulous exercise wherein we try to take the situations of everyone and then give a value. A common value to everybody would be a problematic point, but if we are able to gauge it based on their requirements, specific requirements, for example, the medical expenditure that they might have or any kind of other services that they require. So then maybe differential rates can be given to different people. I would go against a common line which is given to everybody, but then different rates to different kinds of sections of the society.
Okay, so you have been playing badminton.
Yes, sir.
So what is the level you achieved?
So I just played in the college level, not any.
Okay.
Yes.
So if I ask you to compare game of Carolina Marin and Saina Nehwal, how do you compare their game?
So I have less knowledge on this, but I'll try to give my best shot at this.
Okay.
So Carolina Marlin, I think she plays mind games. When she shouts at a very loud pace, she's trying to win the mind of the other opponent, and that's when she hits very fast smashes. So meanwhile, the other person, she's good at backhands and throwing shuttles at a longer pace, a longer distance and longer rallies, so to say. So Carolina Marlin is more.
Saina Nehwal doesn't go for rallies. Rallies, I think, is the fort of Sandhu.
Okay, sir. I'll read more on
Okay,
this.
my last question. When you joined the service, you were IRTS,
Yes, sir.
and later on this single service was created,
Yes, sir.
IRMS. What is your take? Would you have applied for same 5 services, or would you have applied for lesser services if the IRTS had remained separate?
So I would have applied for almost the similar kind of services because.
So you feel that there is no change as such in the cadre and the career progression?
So almost no change, I would like
Okay,
to say.
thank you.
Okay, Medha, you are from Meerut.
Yes, sir. Born in.
Can you tell me something about the historical importance of Meerut?
Yes, sir.
Whichever period you choose.
So Meerut, first of all, was important in the 1857 rebellion, wherein Mangal Pandey, he started the rebellion from there,
Yeah.
sir. Sir, apart from that, sir, I think I can recall Khan Bahadur Khan. He also had some hideouts in Meerut, sir, if I'm able to recall well. So these are some of the instances I can think about Meerut. Sir, apart from that, we have a sports industry which provides bats, premium quality bats, which are even exported.
Okay. And you spent some years in Kanpur.
Yes, sir.
If I say Kanpur is a dying city, will you agree with me? Textile gone, leather almost gone.
Sir, it was called the Manchester of the East in the early times. So if we compare it to that, it is decaying to some extent. But sir, we are coming up with alternatives, and like alternatives to leather, we are not using chromium to produce leather. So along with that, we are using pineapple to make pine tex, which is leather made out of pineapple. So sir, with these technological innovation and a focus on retaining a cleaner Ganga, so we'll be able to prevent it from dying, sir.
Okay. Now coming to railways, I feel the what needs attention first is the improvement of the tracks and also the communication. Most of the accidents, including that happened in Odisha, was because of communication lapse. Instead of that, we are giving now more attention to rolling stock, fancy, sprucing up and model railway stations, new lines for political purposes, and speed. So, don't you think slightly twisted thinking?
So I think we need to work on all these aspects together. While we are definitely laying down new tracks, improvising the tracks that were already there. So the signaling system, I assume there is a need to transform the code that we are using, because the Balasore incident happened because of a wrong code
Yes.
of the signaling. So we are definitely putting our thinking onto it, sir. So the covered system that we are establishing is for the safety purpose, so that even if there is a glitch in the signaling system, God forbid, at least there is a braking system in place which will work automatically, sir. So having said that, we also need to focus on the cleanliness of the stations, along with that the speed of our trains, because I think when we are the third largest nation in terms of the PPP, we need to give our citizens better services. If they can travel faster in smaller amounts of time, they'll be able to do better for the economy, sir. So I think we need to focus on all these aspects without overlooking either of these.
But we were told by another candidate that the speed specified for all these trains, Rajdhani or Vande Bharat, can't be achieved because of the condition of the tracks.
So while tracks remains one of the problematic areas, sir, with time we are trying to improve them. Sir, apart from that, once we are shifting the freight trains to the dedicated freight corridors, the bundling effect will reduce. And because of that, sir, the punctuality as well as the speed of the trains can be enhanced. Sir, along with that, there is an automatic signaling system wherein once a train passes, automatically the next section will show green signal. So, sir, with these kinds of innovations, along with sir, track improvisation, we'll be able to enhance the speed as well as the capacity of the railway network, sir.
Okay. Recently, we amended all the 3 criminal laws.
Yes, sir.
Tell me 3 provisions which are pro-woman.
So, I'm just not able to recall, sir, right now.
Okay, all right. You are a civil engineer.
Yes, sir.
How is Ayodhya temple unique from a civil engineer's point of view?
So one is that it solely uses stone as compared to the recent materials that are there in the civil engineering aspect. So rather than concreting it, we have utilized the grooves part of the stones to attach them. So basically, if there is a triangular groove, the other part of this stone can simply attach itself to it rather than the requirement for cementing. So the whole complex is built on this aspect. So apart from it, the foundation, the base of the Ayodhya temple is very, very strong. And it is said that it will be around for around 1000 to 2000 years in future. So that is because they have put cement concrete in the foundation. It is the size of a football ground wherein 3 layers of compactions have been done to ensure that the stability of the structure remains in future. So these are the 2 things that are remarkable.
And no use of steel?
So steel is there in the foundation but not in the temple complex, sir.
Okay. Your father is from Bareilly.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me a popular Hindi film song?
So that is Jhumka Gira Re Bareilly Ke Bazaar.
Thank you.
Okay, so Medha, nice talking to you. Your interview is almost over. Before we let you go, can you tell me, you were talking about Meerut. Why Meerut is spelled like M-E-E-R-U-T? That doesn't sound to be spelling of Meerut. Why do you spell, you people in Meerut spell your name of the city like this?
So I'll take a guess. Maybe that's the anglicized version of something which was earlier there. Like Kanpur.
M-E-R-U-T-H, M-E-R-A-T-H is perfectly Meerut. Why
Yes,
would
sir.
the Anglicized version will have double E?
So I'm not quite sure about it, but maybe something with the spelling might have happened when they would have been translating it from Hindi to English.
You can look at it. Nice talking to you. Your interview is over. You can leave and please wait for the feedback session.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Thank you. May I come in, sir?
Yes, Medha, please sit down. So,
Yes, sir.
well, the interview part is over, so you can relax. You got 180 and 190 earlier, right?
Yes, sir.
And your interview is on which date?
13th March, sir.
13th March. It's not far.
193.
190.
First time.
Right. So, since you've been through MIL, you understand what is expected of the candidate and how they evaluate. What's your take on your performance today on the basis of that?
So one was that women provision. I forgot I just blanked out on it. I should have known it. At
Because your
least.
second preference is IPS.
Yes,
Should
sir.
go through it.
Yes,
Go
sir.
through those bills and all, right? And what else?
So I think it was okay.
And in terms of communication, what are the areas you believe that you can do a little better?
So I can be more maybe assertive, maybe. Somewhere I was just pulling my voice down to showcase a lack of confidence, maybe.
Well, see, Medha, I need not say it. You already know it, that you're a good candidate, right? You've been through MIL multiple times. You know what is expected. I'm sure you have done your written well. So I don't see anything as such which you need to drastically change, right? I'll be giving you the feedback on the basis of just this performance and whatever discussion that took place. Overall, your confidence level is very good. You're already in service. Even for the board, it is going to be like this. Okay, it's like just shifting from a department A to department B. You already know the system. That part will be. But at the end of the day, you're still a candidate. And that is one thing I want you to make a poster and please paste it on your wall. That you need to remind yourself more than once. Because continuously being in that state that as if you still represent government may not be necessary always, right? You need to understand this, that there, despite you being in service, primarily you will be treated like a candidate, right? So you will have that extra freedom which any other candidate has, and you will not have that extra obligation of, for example, defending the government for every action, right?
Yes.
So unless you actually believe it, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can obviously put forward your argument in favor of the government with the substance, but that will not go to the extent that you'll have to defend even the social expenditure cut. Right, that goes a little bit too far, as if you are from the same ministry, as if you have presented the vision. That's not the case, right?
Yes.
But overall, you're a very good candidate. In terms of communication, the specific sense, your walk-in is good, sitting posture is good. I'm not commenting on the dress part. I presume that you'll be wearing something else,
yes,
right? So, but in general, your hand movement was restricted, eye contact was good, flow was good, confidence level was also there. It is only at a few places where it appears that you're trying to be extra defensive, and then your tone goes a little down. That was there at few places, not much. So at least on the communication front, on the front of analysis and understanding, you're doing things right. Similar incident happened when you were defending that any Indian has to be supported by government in whatever case. That is also going to the very extreme thing. I think you can probably recalibrate it, or you can rethink whether you want to say it or you just had to say it because it was in that particular moment. So these are a few things that we wanted to suggest, because it also suggests from this angle as if you're avoiding a certain intellectual rigor in arriving at your opinions. So it shouldn't appear that you're avoiding intellectual rigor, because just because you're into the bureaucracy doesn't mean that you'll stop thinking, right? So other things are in place and you're doing very, very good. There are certain areas we could not ask. Therefore, there was not enough talk. There was a little chit chat, but there wasn't enough talk on the civil engineering background of yours.
Yes,
in railways, it's a huge thing. We could ask a few things, but there can be several other things that can be asked. Gender is one area you should be preparing even more. These are few areas we could not discuss. Similarly, environment and geography thing. So my advice is that please brush up these areas also if you have not already, and I'm sure you'll do very, very good. How is your mains this time? Better than last time, or like that?
So it's difficult to gauge.
Obviously it is. But what's your feel?
So I did my best. That's all I can say. I'll leave the rest.
All the best.
Thank you so much, sir.
All the best.
All the best.
Thank you, sir.